Well, welcome to Daily Devotions. My name is Raymond Gregory. And I remember when I was a little kid, I would stay home from school and I'd pop on the TV, but I'd always get bummed out when cartoons would end and these lame courtroom reality shows would start. Stuff like Judge Judy or The People's Court or stuff like that. And they were always litigating against the most ridiculous thing. It's like, she ran over my dog. Well, he owes me $500 for my bumper. All this kind of stuff. And they go after each other. It was like Jerry Springer with litigation. Well, I bring all that up because today we are launching into 1 Corinthians chapter 6. And we're going to hear about how Christians should handle litigation, or more specifically, how Christians should handle disputes with each other in regards to doing it in public. And so today I've titled this Devo in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, The People's Court. All right, so we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, and if you want to follow along, I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And like I said, I've titled the Devo, The People's Court. And it's amazing that The People's Court, the TV show, has been on 36 seasons, like longer than I've been alive. People have been watching The People's Court. And it makes you wonder why. What is so captivating about watching people litigate against each other in small claims court? Well, we're going to read in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, starting in verse 1, and you can see it's a tale as old as time. And so we'll pick up right here in verse 1. It says, "When one of you has a dispute with another believer, how dare you file a lawsuit and ask a secular court to decide on the matter instead of taking it to other believers?" Okay, I'm going to stop there for just a second because we know that Paul in 1 Corinthians is actually answering a letter that he's been sent. And so he's been sent a letter with all these different issues from the church there in Corinth. And here is one of them that he's heard about. Somebody is taking another believer to the public court. Now, in Greek culture, arbitration was kind of an entertainment piece. So they would go into the market center where the judges had set up shop on a thing called the bema seat. And so they would sit on the bema seat and people would gather around, and their form of entertainment was watching people litigate against each other. It was like the courtroom drama of the day, or the courtroom reality show of the day. It was the Judge Judy of the day, not unlike what we have today. And so let's pick up in verse 2. "Don't you realize that someday we believers will judge the world? And since you are going to judge the world, can't you decide even these little things among yourselves? Don't you realize that we will be judging angels?" Okay, again, I want to stop there because there's a lot of common misconceptions about this verse here. Now, he's not talking about us judging righteous angels. We're not going to sit up on a throne and pit angels against each other. He's talking about us judging fallen angels. If you remember the story of Joseph, and in Sunday school you would learn about Joseph and the coat of many colors, how Joseph was a favorite of his father, and it didn't sit well with his brothers, and so his brothers trapped him and then sold him into slavery. And then later on, Joseph rises among the ranks and becomes very powerful, and a famine comes over the land, and his brothers have to come to him for food, and he's in charge of doling out, the rations of food. And so now he has an opportunity to judge his brothers. And what does he do? He shows mercy on them. Well, in the same way, there are fallen angels, and so when we rule and reign with Christ, we will have jobs, and one of those jobs will be to judge those fallen angels. Not righteous angels, but fallen angels. Okay, so let's move on. There's a little groundwork to lay before we get into the meat of it. So you should surely be able to resolve ordinary disputes in this life. If you have legal disputes about such matters, why go to outside judges who are not respected by the church? I am saying this to shame you. Isn't there anyone in all the church who is wise enough to decide these issues? But instead, one believer sues another right in front of other believers. I love how Paul goes like full Judge Judy here. He says, I am saying this to shame you. Judge Judy doesn't take any people messing around in her courtroom, and she'll shame you if that's what the need is. And so Paul's going full Judge Judy. He's like, I am saying this to shame you. Verse 7 says, even to have such lawsuits with one another is a defeat for you. Why not just accept the injustice and leave it at that? Why let yourselves be cheated? Why not let yourselves be cheated? Instead, you yourselves are the ones doing wrong and cheat even your fellow believers. Okay, so I want to stop there, and I want to give you 3 points today about how we should handle disputes with other believers and how it affects our walk and our witness for Christ. And so the first point is this: public disputes make for great entertainment, but terrible evangelism. I'll say it again. Public disputes make for great entertainment, but terrible evangelism. Have you ever been on Facebook and somebody posts something slightly controversial? Or more specifically, somebody posts something slightly controversial about theology, and then now there's infighting. There's a bunch of Christians jumping on it. Or even politics. Somebody will say something about Trump, and then somebody will jump on it who's a Christian. Well, I hate Trump, and well, I love Trump, and I blah, blah, blah. And they start just reaming each other on Facebook. That is pretty entertaining to watch, but it's really terrible for evangelism, because a non-believer might look at that and be like, well, Christians are supposed to, be unified under Christ. They're children of God, and yet they're fighting like they're enemies. Psalm 133:1 says this: how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. Unity should be the goal. And so, as Paul says here, why do you fight among yourselves? Why do you bring another believer into litigation in public? We should be showing unity. So again, number one, public disputes make for great entertainment, but terrible evangelism. People are watching us, and we need to be different. Number two, if your future is the bench, don't waste your time at the bar. If your future is the bench, don't waste your time at the bar. Okay, so the judge's quarters, the judge's area of the courtroom is considered the bench. And the people who are litigating or are representing someone who is suing another person stand at something called the bar. And so, again, verse 2 says, don't you realize that someday we believers will judge the world? And since you are going to judge the world, can't you decide these little things among yourselves? Don't you realize that we will judge angels? So like I said, we will judge fallen angels, and then one day we will judge the world. We will have the opportunity that Joseph had, and to judge other people that have wronged us. And so if our future is to stand and sit on that bench, we shouldn't waste each other's time standing at the bar, arguing and disputing over things that are only temporary. And so again, if your future is the bench, don't waste your time at the bar. Number 3 and final. The ruling is never in Christ's favor. The ruling is never in Christ's favor. Verse 7 says this: even to have such lawsuits with one another is a defeat for you. Why not just accept the injustice and leave it at that? Why not let yourselves be cheated? Instead, you yourselves are the ones who do wrong and even cheat your fellow believers. It damages your relationship. It damages your reputation, and it damages Christ's reputation, most importantly and above all. We are representatives of Christ, and so we should live as such. We should lead with love instead of, once again, I think I've said the word litigation like 5 million times in this Devo, so here it is again. Lead with love instead of litigation. Forget about the people's court. Even though people love to watch it, people find it interesting, it's not doing us any favors. So, to recap, number 1, public disputes make for great entertainment, but terrible evangelism. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. Number 2, if your future is the bench, don't waste your time at the bar. Number 3, the ruling is never in Christ's favor. If Christ could hang on the cross and say, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do," for people who hung him on that cross, surely we can say, you know what? Help me forgive them for what they did for me. So forget about the people's court. You're a new creation in Christ, and so you should live that way. That is what I have for you today. Again, my name is Raymond Gregory, and we upload and stream live devotions daily on weekdays. And so tomorrow we'll get into the rest of 1 Corinthians chapter 6. You can send me a private message with prayer requests. I do prayer walks 3 times a day, and so I'll definitely be praying for you, and I'll respond. Be sure to like and then comment down below and subscribe to notifications so you'll be notified when we have new devotions available. And so I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.